Hello and welcome, Legionnaires, back to Legions of Miniatures. I'm joined again by Callum. It's been a while, hasn't it,
Oh,
Callum? It hasn't really.
not not
Not
really.
really. Okay,
Steven.
we've had a fun little idea recently, and I got my hands on the General's Handbook 2020, which contains some truly lovely rules in the narrative play section called the Anvil of Apotheosis. And what this will allow you to do is it allows you to work through and use these profiles and sort of like little points to, let's see, set up your own heroes. So you can create your own characters for use in narrative games.
Woo!
And there is a rudimentary system to convert them over as well to having matched play points, which means if you play with guys who are a bit more matched play, we can sort of get involved in that. Now, one of the things that I really like about this is it's kind of the first little like tasters at the sort of older levels of Warhammer Fantasy Battles customization that we used to have back in the day, where the one I always like to go to is when I started playing Vampire Counts back in 2007, 2008, that sort of time period. Um, there was the opportunity for your vampire lords to take like 100 points of vampiric powers and 100 points of magic items, which overall total about 6 pages worth of customization that was available to your characters.
So much choice.
So much, loads of choice. So it's
Oh,
not quite up to that level here. However,
mm,
it does allow us to do a bit more of a custom build for the style of characters,
yeah.
and that is very exciting. So, Callum, do you
Me
want to
so.
tell them what we've done?
So we've picked some characters essentially in uh, stories or in other uh, medium, I should say, and we've decided to bring them into Age of Sigmar and assign them their sort of uh, based upon the kind of their attributes, giving them a bunch of profiles to make them into playable characters. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, we've chosen 4 characters. You chose 2. I chose 2 that we thought would be quite interesting. And
yep,
they kind of lean into our personal enjoyments and sort of things that have we've
mm.
enjoyed over the last 20 something years of our lives. So you went ahead and
So we start off with I one of my personal favorite characters, if I couldn't really miss the opportunity to do so, is Cloud Strife. So
yeah. Well, I mean let's just start there, shall we?
yeah,
Cloud Strife. So let's bring over onto the screen. So we've got our little war scroll layout on the right hand side of your screen now.
yep,
And this was just downloaded off of the Games Workshop website on the Warhammer community article that they put out regarding the Anvil of Apotheosis and just the General's Handbook 2020. They had a link at the bottom for downloading this as a PDF so you can print it off and fill it in. We've not done that. I've gone
Andy.
ahead and whacked it into paint.net, which is a free Photoshop GIMP style product. And yeah, we started off. Well, first things first. What
Yep.
race did we say Cloud was?
Okay, so just to introduce Cloud, essentially is from the Final Fantasy VII universe. He's a it's a setting where it's kind of a fantasy world with magic and stuff, usually in the form of materia, um, and it's kind of like modern day, but with this kind of fantasy element.
Modern
So
fantasy, yeah.
yeah, so the characters in the story are human, and it would make sense that we he would be human too. So that was quite easy to choose. And there he is.
So
Nice
yeah,
picture of him with his
we went ahead and put
striking
Cloud in.
hair.
Now,
Yeah.
by the end of it, we worked him out to be 25 destiny points, which approximately correlates to 250 points.
Mm.
We did give him a couple of upgrades to his wounds
Yeah.
as we went on.
So I was like, because this character, he's essentially been infused with what is Mako energy, or what is the planet's life stream, and he's become this super soldier. His attributes have been enhanced, and so it was very fitting. We've improved his speed, because he can, he can outrun people shooting him and stuff, and he's incredibly endurable. So if we had to, it would be thinking to up his wounds, because he could take huge amount of forces for and be stabbed by really long swords, and he just keeps tanking them off. So it made sense that this character was to have a high amount of wounds.
We did
So
decide. Apologies for my phone there. We did decide that Cloud doesn't really like. He's wearing some leathers and some little like extra bits of armor, but that's
mm,
nothing like extensive. So the 5+ save is reasonable for him.
yeah,
And we also
I mean,
said,
yeah, they did in the game. They would have like bangles and stuff that could have effects, but as you say, he's mostly just wearing this kind of uniform. It does have a bit of armor on it, but it's not like any different to what a typical sort of soldier would have on the field.
yeah. And as far as his bravery goes, we sort of decided that although he's a kind of hero character in a game, compared to say like other heroes, he's probably fairly level. At the end of the day, he's just a mercenary.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it made sense that he's as we get to with the other characters, it made more sense why they've got a higher bravery. So yeah, if seven seemed right, he's still a hero character, so it's still a decent bravery. It just feels right.
What's the sort of iconic part of Cloud's character to lead us on into
Yes.
the next section?
So a lot of you will, if you know Cloud, you will know that he has something that really stands out, and that is, and I've got actually something to show here. I've got my very own Buster Sword. So he has this sword, of course, is not usually this small. Um, it's a huge broadsword. So it's trying to remember how big it is off by heart, but essentially it's like the same
Large.
size as a person. It's huge. Um, and so we saying because it's a very iconic weapon because it was handed to him from a friend who died. But it's a very just it's a massive weapon. It's a huge forged weapon. But because this guy, he's superhuman, he has a lot of strength, means that he can actually wield this not with just one hand, but not two hands, but with one hand. But so it made sense that this would be using the great sword um, stats, and then we will try to change it accordingly. So
Yeah, like although as you said, he can wield this in one hand. Ultimately, it is a two-handed weapon,
yeah,
and it's like most efficient for the points to treat it as such. So we treated it as a two-handed weapon.
mm, yeah,
Some of the little things that we did, we buffed up its wound rate. We buffed its damage up from 2 to 3,
yeah.
and we increased the number of attacks that it made, didn't we?
Yeah, because we was arguing that I mean he's ferocious when it comes in close combat. He's incredibly fast. Even with this, massive sword, he can, throw in so many attacks. If you've played the game, the remake, you know that he has a special mode where he can just play left, right, and center. Um, but at the same time, he just has so much power. That's what he has going for him, and so it makes a lot of sense that when that blade comes down, that sharp blade comes down, that it's just going to be doing a ton of damage because of how much strength, how much force he's applying behind it. So it was very, we thought, yeah, it made sense. Like just up his damage profile was probably the most important thing. Um,
I mean, with that weapon profile, he is going to tear, absolutely tear through basic infantry. You know, this guy is a
mm,
really scary horde clearer when
yeah,
it comes down to his combat profile,
yeah,
and
and
even against other heroes, I'd be worried
yeah,
putting Arkan the Black against this guy. I feel like I'd very quickly lose
yeah.
some of my characters that way.
And I think it's very thing for the character because he is in the sort of the lore of the game. he's soldier first class. He's not just better than the troops, but he's also meant to be better from like than the people higher up in the ranks. Some of the
Hmm.
more claimed fighters. So this is a person who can take on big monsters. He's not afraid to. So for an average person, yeah, he's going to deal with them like mincemeat, really.
At a potential 15 damage, I'd even be afraid to put Nagash in front of him. I think,
Yeah.
admittedly, with like the saves, Nagash is probably going to be safe after a round of combat, and probably
Mm,
at 7 wounds and a 5+ save, he could probably blast Cloud aside. But let's move on from there to some of his abilities. The first thing
mm.
that you sort of educated me on is this guy's a wizard. I wasn't aware of that.
So I wouldn't just say wizard, but he actually does um, possess. He can use magic. In this, the world. If you look back at the Buster Swords, I'll just show you. Do you notice there are two holes in his sword? And these are where they have in the game materia, which are essentially like crystals, which once you can use them to actually release amount of, to release energy. So, I mean, at the very beginning of the game, we see him being able to just shoot lightning from Will, really. And he actually, even in the game, has a high MP, which is basically it has a high amount of um, usage of magic. So he's very actually, yeah, he can wield uh, magical moves, and I think there's a whole array of ones that you can give him, but I think starting off from the very beginning of the game, he gets lightning.
Yeah.
Um, so if very fitting that if we're going to give him a spell, it should be they in the game they call it bolt, but it's lightning materia. So
So, I
so yeah,
mean,
we've given him.
yeah, so the way we decided to use lightning, we just called it lightning. Just kind of like how we took the Buster Sword, and it was a great sword, but we named it Buster Sword.
Mm,
Lightning is the wildfire spell, and it's just a simple, you know, kill a third of the models in a unit
yeah,
kind of spell.
it's what it's like when you choose the mage um, sort of line, it gives you four spells to choose from, and there's like one which does healing, so it's like a protective aura. There's one raising the dead. None of that kind of made sense, but he is a physical attacker. He does damage, so I thought that one was the most fitting, really.
There we are.
Yeah,
Oh, hang on. Here's this page here. So yeah, as
yeah.
you can see, when you choose the spell at the mage here, it tells you to choose one of these four spells here, and we just chose the wildfire one there.
Yeah. So yeah, he's
And
also can do magic.
that then brought us on to his abilities as a character, like what made him stand out. And this is where a load of the points started to like rack up.
Mm,
So the main ones that we looked at, if I just scroll up again, is we increased his movement, we increased his wounds twice,
yeah.
we increased his attacks and his hit, and his wound and his damage. We did all of those, but we also gave him ward to reduce the number of damage amount of damage that he takes. This is a feel no pain if you're
Yeah.
sort of familiar with the 40k lingo. And we also gave him zealot to run and charge. Do you want to talk to him about that?
So yeah, as I say, I think before we explain why he had so many wounds, and I think having a feel no pain would also make a lot of sense because there's certain times where in the game he probably should have been killed, but he manages to just have that bit extra inside of him to just keep him going. Um, he's very endurable because he has this life energy kind of going through him. So a feel no pain, makes sense to making him, just really endurable. But at the same time, Ward because um, it was as we say, he's a fast person. He's very quick at moving, and he likes to get in combat very quickly. And he can do that. He can run very quickly across the field. He closed so much ground, and then all of a sudden he just like lurches straight at you. Next thing you know, you've got all these swing of the blades in your face. So
So it's
it
kind
just
of like a dodge ability, as well as just
yeah,
having
because
magically augmented.
yeah, I mean, yeah, he's also yeah, as you say, he's very fast. He can react very quickly. So
So
because a lot of the time you can quickly pull up the sword and just block it. And
so
yeah,
yeah, combining the speed. traits into sort of allowing him to run and charge, and Ward, that's where those abilities came from. That concludes Cloud. That comes in at 250 points, so a bit more expensive than your average hero. He probably stands up okay as far as they go. Definitely not something to be running out in the open. Keep him near some friends.
That 5+ save, he's sure he got quite a few wounds, but yeah, he's, as you say, against someone like Nagash, he's just going to be taken down. So realistically, you want to keep him alive for as long as possible.
So we've now sort of just talked over the process that we went through with making this character, and we're going to go through the next three a bit more swiftly. Now, the next one is one that we should all be familiar with. We decided to go right on ahead and bring out Wolverine.
Yes.
From the X-Men. So Wolverine's coming in at 280 points. Again, he's using a human profile, and we kind of decided that, he's a braver chap.
Because remember, this is a guy who can regenerate wounds, and so he's not going to be scared getting right into the enemy faces, because he can just take those hits. He can be very complacent, and so it made sense, the fact that he would have a higher bravery because of the fact that he's just basically unkillable. What does he have to fear?
Yep, exactly. So when it came down to his weapons, we were presented with a very simple little question to ask ourselves when it comes down to the adamantine claws. What's the way of doing this? And we just went ahead and used unarmed weapons and gave him 2 of them. So
yeah.
Do you want to talk through the weapon attack profile there, the 4+4+Rem -3?
Yeah, so
just very quickly.
I mean, looking through the weapons, is like none of them. I think I saw that the unarmed one had the most amount of attack, so it had 4 attacks, and I thought it makes sense. He's unarmed. He's got claws essentially, so he's using his fists really anyway. But he's just very fast. He's able to slash away lots. So having those 2 claws meant that he's going to have a total of 8 attacks. It does basically mean, to hit is a 4+, 4 wounding. Is not necessarily as probably as powerful hitting as maybe Cloud is, or quite skillful, but he's just got this ferocity of just throwing loads and loads of attacks. We thought, of course, the AP should be improved, because originally I think it didn't have any AP, did it?
No, it was just an unarmed attack.
So I should say rend, not AP, rend, yeah. So because he's got those claws of adamantium, they can pierce through anything. So it made sense that, okay, we need to really ramp that up several levels. So we
maxed it out.
Yeah, we maxed it out, which is the right thing to do. But yeah, standard damage, 1 damage makes sense. So yeah.
And now, really building into the ferocity, we decided that this guy's a commander, and he comes with the lead of the attack command ability.
Yeah.
Which just amplifies either his own attack ability, +1 to hit rolls. That's really going to help him out with that 4+ to hit, or it's going to make him great at leading units into battle. Beyond that, even, we decided to lean into his resistance abilities and his regeneration by giving him both, ward and regenerate.
Yeah.
The frenzy as well, just to really capitalize on. This guy's got loads of attacks, doesn't necessarily hit great, but generating extra hits.
Because you have to remember, he is like an animal still. He's the Wolverine, so you'd expect him to still have this very animalistic side of him, and you can see at times where he's just savage. So it's like, you will see the sort of the guy who get into a frenzy, and it just adds more to the fact that the amount of attacks. I think it's an interesting character to, he might not have the best hitting, but if you give him enough attacks, he's sure to get quite a few of them through.
Yeah. And then Zealot as well, he just runs forwards and gets stuck in. We've all seen the great scenes where he runs forward, leaps off of something in combat, closing the gap as quickly as possible.
Yeah, literally just jumping through the air with his claws out. I think, did we give him decapitation as well?
Doesn't appear so.
Oh, no, man.
I think we considered it, but I don't think we went with it. So at 280 points, he is still coming in at the expensive end, especially with only a 6-inch movement. Kind of put off by something abated by the Zealot. But, at 5 wounds, this guy, he's at risk of being taken off the table quickly. But if the opponent doesn't dedicate a proper amount of fire just to down him, he'll stick around for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
This is going to bring us on to the first of the ones that I sort of wanted to lean into. And this is going back to some big influences from my own childhood. And I decided to lean in and go ahead and take perhaps one of the greatest video game villains of all time, and one of the most tragic fantasy video game villains of all time, Arthas Menethil, the Lich King from World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3. So when I'm looking at this one, I'm looking at him as a Death Knight. So it's before he's become like a super mega boss as the Lich King, but he's still a pretty big deal. So he's coming in at 360 points, so he's a pretty league ahead of everything else so far. Although he is technically human, he is undead, and so I decided to go ahead and use the vampire race profile, because that would give him the additional what's the word I'm looking for? Bravery. The additional bravery that an undead would have, being this implacable sort of tempered emotion, sort of dampened emotions. And I think that's the right way of looking at this. He's got 8 inches of movement and 7 wounds, because we later put him on a horse. I decided that this guy's got to be on his childhood steed, brought back through undeath, invincible. As for his 3+ save, well, I mean, come on. The armor of the Lich King is like nothing to scoff at. Serious armor here. So I decided to crank his save all the way up to 3+, which I think, as some people will attest, in Age of Sigmar, 3+ is a very good save. When it comes to his weapons, I thought this guy needs to have not only a melee attack, but a ranged attack, the ability to toss some dark, corrupt energies in the form of a death coil at nearby enemies. So we just went ahead and used the hand bow profile to give us death coil, giving us just 2 attacks at 4+, 4+. No rend, 1 damage, just a little something to pluck a little bit of wounds off of people nearby, and it was only 10 points, so you could probably easily drop that as part of the setup for Arthas here and bring him down to 350 points, but it's nice to have. Frostmourne itself, I'm coming in with a weapon here that is going to do some damage, but it does hit, and it does get through, but it's not got a lot of attacks. So I wanted to take a look at this from the sort of line as he appears in Heroes of the Storm, and he's a sort of a slower attacker, but he's kind of sturdy and consistent. So 3 attacks, very likely to hit, pretty likely to wound, very likely to actually go through, and then 2 damage each. He's going to start cleaving through people fairly effectively. Now, when it came down to magic, or being a commander, he could be a commander and give extra defensive bonuses or offensive bonuses to people nearby. He could have been a priest and given sort of similar damage abilities that way. But I decided that we're going to go with him being a wizard. Frostmourne is this intensely powerful magic item, and with it he commands and raises the armies of the Scourge. And so we've given him Raise Dead just to keep his legions endlessly implacable. Is implacable a word?
You'd best know about this. I think so.
It sounds like a word. If it's not, it should be.
I am Googling it right now.
Something that cannot be placated.
Implacable, yep. It's in the Google has said so, and if Google has said so, it is a word.
Fantastic. Implacable is a word, ladies and gentlemen.
Unable to be appeased or was it placated?
Unable to be placated. Yeah. Fantastic. So, as I was saying earlier, he is riding Invincible. His noble steed from his childhood that his own hubris and unwillingness to take care resulted in the untimely death of. Upon becoming undead, it is raised as a question as to whether or not he is truly a soulless being, as he goes back to the farmstead where he buried his beloved mount and restores it into undeath. So this just comes for 8 points. It buffs up his movement to 8 inches and his wounds to 7. But it also gives us 2 nice combat profiles. And this is where I'm actually going to go ahead and say, I think there is one issue with this system. Only having 3 levels of mount or 3 levels of bestial companion is insufficient. My horse should not have a 1 attack 4+3 plus rend -1 d3 damage attack. My horse's bite is not that. My horse's bite is not almost as strong as my sword.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say here. I think there needed to be another tier, a sort of a standard bestial mount, a sort of like a beast, and then like the gargantuan dragon style monster that is available there. So actually, this is going to be where my first and very few criticisms of this system comes in. As for his abilities, well, he's got Ward. Like Frostmourne is actively trying to protect him, and it is a sentient blade in its own way. As a consummate commander, this guy leads the legions of the Scourge and is a great tactician in his own right, having been raised as a prince and going through the military schools of thought. And really, this guy successfully devastates the majority of the world through his own machinations in combat itself. Although his grand campaign is guided by other beings, he on the battlefield is a great commander, so giving you an extra command point. And then we come down to Decapitating Strike. Frostmourne rips the souls of its victims out, and so that is where we're getting that from. And that ties us in for Arthas Menethil coming in at 360 points. That speed and durability really gives him a very strong place on the battlefield, and the extra command point could be very viable, especially if you included this guy in a Grand Alliance of Death army, where you have some absolutely fantastic command abilities to be making use of. He is great in combat, and with that spell, he is going to be put him with a nice little unit of guys with 1 wound, maybe some Graveguard, give him some Graveguard, and he is going to be very, very successful, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think having a high save, and a high speed is going to make him stay on the board, but because he's fast, he can get around the field quite quickly. So it's very good control piece. Definitely that will buff up the army very well.
Now, very recently, on Xbox, in fact, when they were revealing new games for the year, something tipped my inspiration in this matter. One might even say I was given infinite inspiration.
See what you did there?
And we're moving away now from the fantasy style and saying, can we make Master Chief in this system? Now, when it comes down to Master Chief, what do we do, Callum? What race did we give him?
Well, he's not just any ordinary person, really. So we've because of course donned in armor, brave fighter, the greatest fighter really, had to be Stormcast, didn't it?
Yep. So we went ahead and made him a Stormcast Eternal. This meant that we weren't having to worry about getting his bravery up. We weren't having to worry about getting his save up for all those extra points. We got a absolutely solid stat line right off the bat with Master Chief. And this is where the second criticism of the system comes in, because as soon as we started to play around with his weapons, getting 2 decent weapon profiles was very quickly a lot of points. At 330 points, we managed to get him set up with an assault rifle, giving him a very, very nice ranged attack profile, and the ability to beat people with the butt of this same assault rifle. And it was upgrading that to what I considered to be a suitable level of being very likely to hit and very likely to wound, but whether or not that would get through the armor, that was a bit of a question. Getting up to that level cost us a lot of points. I think 80 points all told is what went into that improvised weapon.
Yeah.
3 attacks, I don't think it's worth it. I really don't think it's worth it.
The improvised weapon is really poor stat line in the beginning, so you'd have to invest so many points into trying to make it just actually feasible. Unless you would have gone to go with like a sword or something instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did definitely cost a lot to give it, because of course when you invest not just in one but in two weapons, it starts just ramping up very quickly.
So we also decided, let's look at his abilities. The Master Chief is sort of like the last line of defense for humanity. So let's go ahead and give him the lead the defense command ability. He can give someone near him +1 to their save rolls. Now, that's not bad. It's really not bad.
Not bad at all.
And it's really going to make him a force multiplier for units alongside him. If I put Master Chief here with some Stormcast Eternals, you'd have a... do apologize. You'd have a very strong defense line. And then coming in with the Mjolnir armor, gave him Ethereal. The ability to have this 3+ unrendable save is going to make sure the Master Chief is sticking around. End of. He's going to be providing decent support from range, and in close combat he's not terrible. He's not the best, but being able to shoot in close combat and being very hard to get rid of means he is going to be a formidable foe. Especially if you just need a point held. Sit this guy on a backline objective, Bob's your uncle. And as you can see, at 330 points, this guy's got nowhere near as many abilities as, say, Arthas Menethil did previously, which is why I think the upgrades to weapons is a serious weakness of this system. That it could maybe benefit by having decimals in the upgrade thing. So rather than being 20 points, maybe only be 15 points to upgrade the damage. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of our showcase here.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to say I quite liked the fact that we've been able to go for 4 very different characters and come out with these kind of traits that kind of that kind of represents them very very closely. So in the end, I think that it's looking quite promising, actually. Being able to apply this to our own characters into Age of Sigmar, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I think that just my own views is that it's a very good system. I really like that they've introduced this back again, and yeah,
fantastic. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Did you agree with all of our stat lines? Did you agree with how we built up these characters? If not, leave a comment in the description, in the comments below, and perhaps there's another character you might hope to see us make in a future video if we were to do this again. If you like this, go ahead and give it a like. Go ahead and share it with your friends and see what they think. And as I say, please leave a comment below. Tell us how we can do things better. Hopefully, after the last couple of videos, my microphone sound quality is a little bit better than it has been. It has been an interesting endeavor trying to get this set up properly in a way that completely functions. And I hope you're liking the new layout. I've been working rather hard on these frames over in paint.net, as I showed you the character sheets on today. And please go ahead and look in the description below, and you should be able to find the war scrolls that we've generated and shown in this particular video, and so that you can print them off if you so desire and use them in your own games, just in case you wanted to have Master Chief run around on your board being a complete lunatic. Warning, I think he's very overcosted. So it's bye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And we'll see you next time.